Hello, everyone. I'm Cristina Anastasio with AARP New Jersey, and I want to welcome you to AARP New Jersey's Fraud Friday. We are having an important discussion on frauds and scams related to the coronavirus, and we're joined by a special guest from the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs, Director Paul Rodríguez. Hi, Paul.
Hello. Hi, Cristina.
Today we're focusing on how you can take important steps to protect your health and your wallet. We'll share tips and resources on how you can stay safe from frauds and scams, and we'll address your questions. For general information on the coronavirus pandemic, you can find AARP's coronavirus resources at aarp.org/coronavirus. We'd like to make this an interactive event today, so if you have any questions for our guest, please just put them in the comments section at any time through the live stream. This is your opportunity to learn, ask questions, and get answers. So again, we are joined by Paul Rodríguez, Director of New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. The mission of the Division of Consumer Affairs is to protect from fraud, deceit, and misrepresentation through education, advocacy, regulation, and enforcement. Thank you for joining us, Director Rodríguez. We're so pleased to have you provide answers and share some tips for our viewers. Fraudsters we know right now are capitalizing on the coronavirus and using people's heightened fear and anxiety to scam them. Could you share with us a little bit about how we're seeing new twists to old scams?
Sure. Cristina, thank you very much for having me. Thank you to AARP New Jersey, and thanks for the viewers today. So I want to say, first and foremost, so we are here at the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. We're your consumer protection agency here in the state of New Jersey. We're within the Attorney General's office. And, you mentioned one of the most important things that we can do is educate consumers so they don't fall victim to scams in the first place. And yes, we go out there and we enforce when people are taken advantage of in the marketplace. But, if we can let people know what scams are out there, we can protect them to make sure, they're not taken advantage of, they know what their rights are. And so, you mentioned that there's a lot of old scams that are out there that have a new twist. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind there is that with scammers, if you put yourself in the mindset of a scammer, what it is that they're trying to get out of you and what they're trying to do to you is they're trying to throw you off base and they're trying to scare you. And so, scammers, like all of us, are following the news and the headlines now. They will take existing scams, things that they know will work, and they'll repackage them in a way that are going to take advantage of current anxieties, and also maybe trigger something in something that you read in the headline. So an example of that, there's something that is often referred to as the grandparent scam, because it's often someone who is posing as a grandchild or sometimes a nephew, calling you and asking for some sort of immediate emergency assistance, or someone who claims they're on their behalf. So in the old days meaning 3 months ago, pre-COVID-19, most often that was someone who claimed that a loved one was struck by a car, they were a passerby, I took their cell phone from their pocket, you were a recent number that they dialed, we need money right away to get him some sort of emergency care, get him to the hospital. Or someone calling and saying, oh, sorry, Grandma, you don't recognize my voice because I've been beat up really bad. I got thrown in jail. I need some way to get me money right away for bail. Now we're seeing that sort of scam, except that it's someone either by phone or sometimes by text or email saying, I'm in quarantine. And I can't get access to some essential supplies that I need, or there's something else like I've been infected. I need help for testing, and I need some money right away. Some of the just keep in mind any call that you get that you're not expecting, anything that tries to impose some sort of sense of urgency, that's a telltale sign for a scam. It's somebody who's trying to throw you off base. They don't want you to take time to think. They want to instill in you a fear of, let me do anything it takes to take care of it and make this problem go away. Also, other telltale signs, again, numbers you don't recognize, not answering questions a little oddly, not the way you would expect, and also unusual forms of payment. Scammers will often try to use forms of payment that are harder for authorities to detect and to trace. So they're going to ask for payments in gift cards or wire transfers. They're not going to ask for, or they're less likely to ask for, just a check or something, or a credit card transaction that can be reversed. So if you see that, if someone's asking for an immediate payment in a gift card or wire transfer, that's an immediate red flag. So if you get a call like that, reach out to that relative directly. If you're not really sure it's them, call them up on their phone, see if it's them. Call a relative and say, hey, have you heard about this relative, see how they're doing. And unfortunately, another types of scam, unfortunately, we see this whenever there's any sort of public concern, be a natural disaster, like now a healthcare issue, or after 9/11, we saw these as well. We see charity scams. Now, New Jerseyans are known for their generosity, and we want to support here at the Division of Consumer Affairs. We regulate charities. We want to support. It's important that people are generous and support charities. Unfortunately, after any type of emergency, in the wake of them, scammers are out there trying to take advantage of that, and so they'll set up fake charities. They'll solicit money, claiming they're with a charity. And so, for individuals, for people who want to donate, there's many. You should do your homework. I mean, if you want to make sure so that your hard-earned money is going to where it's going to be needed, and also to make sure that it doesn't fall into the hands of someone who shouldn't. There's ways you can do your homework. So if someone's soliciting money from you, in most cases they have to register with us. You can go to the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs website, NJConsumerAffairs.gov, and make sure they're registered. You can also go to other websites like the IRS or Charity Navigator, GuideStar, Charity Watch. You could just research the charity, make sure they're a real charity. And also, to the extent that someone is, again, demanding money right away. I mean, we have heard accounts of people claiming to be from a charity saying, we're going to go right over your house and pick up a check, or you must make the payment right now, again, sometimes through alternative means, or just setting up, a fake website. One of the things that's helpful, if you can give to charities that give to charities that you're able to research. If you're at, charities, legitimate charities are happy to answer questions. They have to make all of this information publicly available. They're happy to share that information with you. If someone is refusing to answer questions, getting belligerent with you, that's not someone to give money to. The world has changed a little bit, and that now there's all these, crowdfunding websites that are out there as well. We encourage that, in terms of, if you want to give, but be mindful that those crowdfunding websites are often not set up by charities themselves. It's individuals. They're harder to vet. There's more risk there. We encourage people to do as much research as they can. And if they smell a scam, to please notify us and please file a complaint. The other thing that we're saying, we've always seen lots of work from home scams, unfortunately. Now with everyone working from home, we're a very large number of people here in New Jersey working from home. That is something that unfortunately we're seeing people taking advantage of others. The advice on work from home scams is the same as always. Be mindful, do your research, look up the company if you can in advance, and never pay money in advance. You should never have to pay money in order to get a job. A typical scam, and unfortunately this one goes back decades, is we're going to teach you how to make money from home. Send us a check. We'll show you how. You send in the check, and if you ever get anything, it will be here. All you have to do is put an advertisement and say, we're going to teach you how to work from home. People will send you checks. And it's just an example.
True, it usually is.
Yes. Again, if people are seeing these sorts of scams, please let us know, file a complaint. But, if anything, again, I think you said it right, Cristina. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. And, if anyone's trying to pressure you, don't do that. Just take them. That's a red flag. Just take a moment back, hang up, talk to a loved one, think it through, do a little bit of research.
Yeah, we know that scammers are really trying to capitalize on that stress. So, anything that puts you under pressure or you feel that immediate need, verify it first, I think was part of what you're saying. And really just look to verify everything. Don't take everything at face value. You want to find out that information on your own too. So, Thank you so much for that information. I know, so in addition to new twists on old scams, we're also seeing some innovation in these scams and some new scams pop up. Could you talk a little bit more about most recently that we've seen the COVID-19 testing scams and contract tracing scams? What should our viewers look out for? What can they do to protect themselves from these?
Sure, absolutely. So there's a lot of, scammers, as we talked about before, they follow the headlines, they follow the news, they try to adapt their messages to things that are timely. Now, as many people have concerns about whether they themselves may have contracted the disease and either be currently infected or have contracted it in the past, we're seeing people take advantage of people who desire to know more, and they're taking advantage of people who, they're of confusion around testing scams. And so the types of things that we've seen outright scams, outright frauds of people advertising online, on websites, on social media, saying that they have access to some sort of home test kits that don't actually exist. And what they're looking for is either you to send money or you're not going to get anything in response, or for you to send money and they're going to send you a kit that is some sort of bogus fake test. There are, if you're going to get tested, we recommend you go to a healthcare professional. You can go to the pharmacy if need be, but don't go to don't just be buying test kits online that might be fake. At the beginning, we were seeing ones where people were claiming to have stolen them from a doctor's office, and now we're going to provide this to you. And keep in mind, those are tests that typically then have to go to an actual lab to be tested. So it wouldn't do you any good, even if you got that test. We've also been seeing tests that are being sold that actually are not authorized by the Food and Drug Administration. So, Food and Drug Administration has a list, and you can go to their website. And if you're seeing a test that's being advertised, you can go and make sure that test has actually been authorized and it's being provided in a manner that's as authorized by the FDA. Because we've seen, unfortunately, here we regulate healthcare professionals as well, and we've seen, even healthcare professionals have offered tests that really should not be offered to the public. And the other thing that we've seen are tests that misrepresent what they really provide to you. So, for example, just keep in mind, and it's helpful for people to realize that there's two types of tests. You have your diagnostic test that's going to let you know whether or not you're currently infected. So that's going to be your test. Typically that's going to be a nasal swab. There's a few other types, but it's going to be something that will let you know whether you currently have an infection. And then there's your antibody test. Your antibody test is going to tell you whether or not it's likely you've been exposed to the virus. It doesn't tell you, and the science is not there to tell you that you're immune from the virus. We just don't know that. And so, and even if there was immunity, there's a difference between, and we know this from other diseases. We don't know this about COVID yet. There's a difference between, you're immune versus you have a slight resistance to, a few days, a few months, a few years. And so that information, we're afraid that people are going to take that information and then change their behavior, not be careful and expose themselves and loved ones when they actually don't know that they're immune. And unfortunately, we've seen advertisements that say, take this test and we'll tell you if you're safe. That is absolutely not what those tests do. And those are typically like blood tests and other types of tests. They're available in the marketplace. Some are authorized by the FDA. They're actually very helpful for public health officials to get a sense of how widespread the disease is and how it's spreading. It's not going to tell you whether you are safe to take off a mask and see your loved ones and not take any precautionary measures.
So it's really those unknowns that the scammers are preying on. They're using that unknown information and putting it into, oh, this is fact, we can protect you. That too good to be true mantra again, and going from there. Very interesting. And so, is the goal of those to steal your identity, or what is the goal of those scams?
There's different scams that are out there. So some of them it's just misrepresentation. Someone who actually has a product to sell and they just, want to puff it up in a way where they're making misrepresentations so that, you're going to fork over your money, not realizing that it doesn't have the same value that you expected it has. In other cases, that's, I mentioned before, there are cases where they're actually selling you something that doesn't exist. In some of those cases, it might be, either they're just trying to, get your money and not provide you anything in return or provide you a fake test. Or in some cases, and this we see more when you get a text, like an unsolicited text message or message by email or a text where there's a link. What they're trying to do is get your personal information. So we've seen not just ones where they want to take your money, but they'll say, oh, there's a free test available. All you have to do is click on this link, give us all your personal information. You may never see anything in return for that, but what they're trying to do in that case is just get steal your personal information.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much. Before we get to the next question, I just want to remind our viewers that if they have a question on coronavirus scams and fraud for our Director of Division of Consumer Affairs, please write that question in the comments section for Director Rodríguez. Director, in the antibody tests and tracing scams aren't only our new scams that we're hearing about. Can you share information about other scams that have popped up since the pandemic started?
Sure. And actually, before I go to that, you touch on an important one, which is the contact tracing scam. I'd like to tell viewers a little bit about that. So the contact tracing scams, first of all, contact tracing is an incredibly important part of, the public health response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Basically, what that entails is when someone has tested positive, there's someone from the Department of Health who will contact them and say, all right, you've tested positive. We want to figure out who else you may have come in contact with so we can tell them that not only should you self-quarantine, but so should they. That's very important. But what we are concerned about, we've heard reports, and this is happening around the country, of people who are posing as contact tracers to get personal information. And again, throws you off base, scares you, tells you you've tested positive when, that will come as news to you. You don't know what to do. Let me turn over this information. So first of all, by their very nature, contact tracers are going to ask you personal information. But they're going to ask you, it's important for viewers to know they're going to ask only for certain types of information and not others. So for example, they're going to ask, what they want to know is what your symptoms are. They're going to want to know who you've been in contact with, maybe, a phone number for that person. They're going to want to know maybe like where you live and not your address necessarily, but they're going to want to know like what other family members do you live in with the configuration of that home? Can you isolate safely from your family members? Are you a healthcare worker? Do we need to worry about that? They're not going to ask. And by the way, when they're going to contact you, often you'll get a text message and say someone from the Department of Health is going to contact you. They're going to contact you from this number. They'll always identify themselves. They'll give a phone number for the Department of Health. You should verify that that person actually is an actual contact tracer and it's not just a scammer. They'll never ask you for your financial information. They're never going to ask you for your social security number, any like passwords or secret questions, your make of your first car, your favorite high school teacher. They're never going to ask you for bank account information. And so if they start asking you those questions, hang up. That is most likely a scam, and you can report that either to at the end we'll have a slide of where you can report these things or to the Department of Health as well. Now, other types of scams, and this sort of goes into the bucket also of an oldie but goodie, is the scams of scammers that are pretending to be from the government. So we've seen that. I just mentioned that in terms of contact tracing, but we see that also in terms of stimulus payments and checks, unemployment. Unfortunately, as many government agencies are, most government employees are working from home. People are taking advantage of that. Scammers are calling and saying, "Oh, you don't recognize the number. I'm calling for myself when I'm working from home. I know you've been trying to reach out to unemployment, which is a safe bet. Unfortunately, it's very serious. There's over 1 million people in the state of New Jersey had filed for unemployment. But people will then say, "All right, I'm calling from the unemployment office. We just need a little more information. I'm calling from the IRS. We need a little information in order to process your check." Those sorts of calls are a very, very common scam that we see, and they're either typically asking for two things. One, they want to get your personal information. I need you to verify your social security number for me. I need you to give me your bank account information so we can wire money to you. Or they're asking for some sort of payment in advance so that they could give you payment. First of all, anything where you have to pay in advance, we see it's one of the most common scams, pay in advance in just a small amount in order to get a bigger amount later, is almost always a scam. We see that in terms of lotteries, we see that in terms of the work from home scams. Just pay us for, pay us in advance in order to work on your resume, and then give you a uniform, and once you pay, they're going to ask for more and more and more. We see that before that, and many of the viewers, unfortunately, I have gotten them myself, will get these calls on your cell phone or your home phone saying, this is the IRS, you're wanted for back taxes, there's a warrant out for your arrest. All you have to do is send us a gift card. and this is to pay your back tax.
And we know that they will
never ask for that. Exactly. So unfortunately, we're seeing that now, claiming that they're calling from unemployment or the IRS. In most cases, people who are expecting a stimulus check would have already gotten them if you filed taxes in the past. There are situations in which individuals who have not filed taxes in the last 2 years will have to proactively take a step and go onto the IRS website in order to file their information. But again, you want to file that information directly with the IRS on their website. You do not want to give that to someone over the phone, and they won't be contacting you.
Absolutely. And we know, do not give your social security number over the phone. Don't send money in advance. Those are, I think, good things to just use as standard status quo. Please don't give your social security number no matter what. So we have a few comments, Director, if you're open to taking some of our viewers' questions. Great. So we have one from Pam. She has been receiving emails asking if she recognizes this person, and then there's a link. She's just deleted the emails, and a friend of her has received the same email from her, but she didn't send it. Is this a new scam?
So, there's a lot of phishing scams that are out there like that. They'll ask for, the two most common ones are ones that look like they're coming from a legitimate site that such as your bank. And then there's a request for, a link there. And another one would be something like this, where it's sort of a leading question. You want to know, I want to know what that's about, to click on that link. And then they're going to ask you for passwords, information. When it's from a bank or some sort of commercial or financial institution, often it will link to a website that, if you look at the top, it looks similar to, but not exactly like the bank's website. The website might look the same. What they want you to do is put in your name and your login and password. Or in a situation like this, I can't speak to this one in particular, but that sounds like it's likely a phishing scam where they're going to ask you for more information. Essentially, if you're getting an unsolicited message, whether it's a call, a text, an email, we recommend people not click on those links. Very, very often, it's one of the most common ways for people to try to deceive people, get them to a website where they're going to put in their personal information. And so the safest thing to do is just delete them.
And so in this case, and then her friend got the same email from her, would you say it's safe to say to probably change your passwords and look at your accounts to make sure that everything is status quo?
Yeah, it's a safe thing. Right now, unfortunately, you can't always trust when it says it's coming from someone. Both for emails and for phone numbers, they can be spoofed. So it will look like it's coming from somebody that when it's not actually coming from that person. So it doesn't mean that their account has actually been compromised, but often it does. And unfortunately, it's an all too common occurrence where people's passwords are, especially if they reuse passwords from one site to another. One website that you have been to, sometime within the last 15 years has been compromised. If you use that same password, that password is often shared on the internet, in the dark web, and then someone will use it on common sites to see if they can log in as you somewhere else. So it's always a good idea to have different passwords on different sites. And if you see something like that happening, if there's reason to believe that your information has been stolen or one of your accounts has been compromised, it's a good idea, it's good practice to change your password.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have another question. So what scams are you getting the most reports of as of lately?
So, I'm happy to report that a lot of the scams that we're hearing about are scams that we're seeing nationally. And, the good news is we've been very proactive here in the state of New Jersey. We have partnered with federal partners. Attorney General Graywall and U.S. Attorney Carpentino have set up a state federal task force to respond to scams. So that's not just, here at the Division of Consumer Affairs, we educate consumers a lot. We also take enforcement action when people are taken advantage by businesses. But we are also, there's some of these frauds and some of these scams are criminal. And so it's important that we work with our criminal partners here in the state of New Jersey and the federal government so that they can respond and we can respond. The federal resources are particularly helpful because a lot of the scams are coming in from overseas. And so, we are working with, and part of this, we also work with Attorney General's offices across the country. So some of the scams I'm talking about here aren't even ones that we've necessarily gotten ourselves and received in this office, but we are all sharing information because scammers, often these are nationwide scams, and we'll see it pop up in one state first and then another. Certainly, the most common ones that I've heard about, we've seen a lot of scams with regard to, we've heard a lot of scams with regard to, misrepresentation of like COVID tests. We've received a lot of scams about, like fake tests being sold online. We've seen the concerns about, reports of people getting those calls about trying phishing scams for unemployment and for IRS stimulus checks or the others that we've heard.
Wow. And you know what, that's very interesting. We actually, on our Fraud Watch network, have a scam tracking map. And it's very interesting to see how across the country these scams move and kind of ebb and flow throughout. And so you're really seeing them go from one side of the country to the other. So, Director, would you mind giving our viewers some tips and guidance on how to protect themselves from frauds and scams and the best way to go about reporting?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the best thing you can do to protect yourself is to keep track of what the scams are. Programs like this, the educational materials that are available through the Division of Consumer Affairs, through AARP New Jersey, through the FTC and other places, all of that, we have heard stories of people who, identical people, people with same level of education, same same income, everything else, same age. One person falls victim to a scam, the other doesn't. The person who didn't had heard of that scam before. They knew that there was something fishy about it. So that education is incredibly important. And the other one, I know I've mentioned it a number of times, but scammers, they try to throw you off balance and they try to confuse you. If people are sharing information with you that just doesn't sound right, if they're trying to scare you and trying to make you act quickly, that's a red flag. Take a step back. No, you should not be forced to part with your money in a quick manner for anything, for any reason. And you've mentioned it several times, something that's too good to be true. We have gotten here in New Jersey, when the governor declared a state of emergency, and also set a cap on prices, so it put up a price gouging law in effect. One of the things that we saw is that there were people sending emails about some of the things that at the beginning of this pandemic were hard to find. So masks or cleaning supplies. So we would see a lot of scams of people saying, "Oh, we've got these readily available," and the prices were too good to be true. The quantities were too good to be true. So and also, as always, unsolicited calls and texts. Be wary of them. Don't share your personal information. Don't click on. We see these ads on social media, and do your homework. Whether someone's asking for, whether it's a company that wants to sell you something, whether it's a charity that's asking for a donation, don't just be convinced by a website. Check to see what other people are saying about them online. Check to see that they're real. If they have to be registered with us, if they have a record with the IRS or another charity watchdog group, check to make sure they're real.
Absolutely. And so how can they report a complaint to the DCA?
So on our website, the best thing you can do is file a complaint online. And the reason for that is that we want to hear from you. We want to hear it in your own words. And so NJConsumerAffairs.gov, if you go there, there's a red box in the upper right-hand corner, and it says file a complaint. You can file a complaint about anything, whether it's about not everything, whether it's about a business, a licensed professional. We regulate security, so if there's someone out there, trying to do an investment scam, you can file a complaint on there. Any documentation you have, we take photographs, receipts. We ask that you talking about protecting your personal information. Please don't put your social security number or your bank account number on there. That's just a general safety tip. But please, share that information, as much information and documentation as you can provide. You can call, but to call it, we can answer some basic questions. We can also send you a complaint form, but we can't take the complaints in necessarily there by phone. But we do take complaints by phone. I mentioned before the state and federal task force. There's a number there, and it's 866-720-5721. I think. Oh, there you go at the bottom. And that number is great because, I mentioned before that we're working together with our state and federal partners. So as we take in those complaints, we can triage them. We can decide, is this a criminal complaint? Is it a civil complaint? Which agency has the resources to take on that complaint? So that's another good place to send complaints. But I do want to stress, people should not feel, if they see a scam, if they see something that's fishy, let us know about it. Unfortunately, sometimes things are out there that, people see them, they don't report them. In order for us to take action, we need to be aware of it. And the other thing is, if you've fallen victim to one of these scams, don't be ashamed. We want people, it happens, it happens to all of us, where we have, been taken advantage of, we let our guard down, someone stole money from us. Sometimes, we hear reports of people who are reluctant to come forward. They don't want their family to think negatively of them. But please, let us know. We can't always get your money back. There are times where there's a scam. They'll take your money. They wire it out of the country right away. But certainly us working with our federal partners will do what we can. But it's also that way we can try to if we're able to contact the business, we can do something on their behalf. If we're able to trace where the money went through one of our federal partners, or just so that we understand and all of us understand what types of scams are out there. We're trying to help you, and there's no reason to feel ashamed for falling victim to one of these scams. These scammers are adept at they know their audience. They know how to do this. This is what they do all day long, making these calls and these emails. And it's one tip that I should say as well is the safest thing you can do: delete the email, ignore the text message, hang up the phone. We've heard stories, people try to outsmart the scammers. Again, this is what they do professionally. This is what they do all day. They know how to work the system. They know how to work you on the phone. Don't try to outsmart them. Just hang up the phone.
Absolutely. Thank you. Those are great tips. Also, if you're concerned that you've been scammed, you can always reach out to a trained volunteer at the Fraud Watch Network helpline. That's 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360. So, Director Rodríguez, do you have any closing thoughts or recommendations related to coronavirus frauds and scams, or scams in general in New Jersey?
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me online. Again, having conversations like this and educating consumers about their rights and scams that are out there and how to protect themselves is one of the most important things we can do here at the division. So thank you, Cristina. Thank you to AARP New Jersey. It's incredibly important that we hear from you. We want to know what scams are out there. So please, if you're seeing something, reporting to us. And the other thing I'd say is talk to your family members about this. This is a good time. First of all, we don't want people to be isolated. We want people to be reaching out as people are staying home. As a general matter, it's good to talk to your friends and family right now, and we should take that time to do that. But this is something, talk to your friends and family about the things that they should do to protect themselves, and so that they know that they can reach out to you if they have concerns, if they get one of these calls.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important what you mentioned. You should report it, because we can't do the education and outreach if we don't know what scams are happening. So, while you said we might not always be able to get your money back, the DCA, but we can't do the education to others to help avoid that happening to other people if those scams aren't reported. So I think that's such a great tip, and we really hope that everyone goes through, if you've been a victim of a scam and you think it needs to be reported, to report that to the DCA. I think we have a slide with some of the resources as well that we can highlight on this call today from the DCA. That we'll loop back, and we'll make sure to put all those resources back in the comments later today. So, and thank you again so much for joining us, Director Rodríguez. This was very informative discussion. For our listeners, we apologize if we didn't get to your question today. All of the information and resources referenced in today's event can be found at aarp.org/coronavirus. Again, that web address is aarp.org/coronavirus. There you will find the latest updates, as well as information tailored to older adults and family caregivers. After our conversation, you'll also be able to find a recording of this Facebook Live video at www.aarp.org/NJFightsFraud. That's www.aarp.org/NJFightsFraud. We hope you learned something new about how you can stay safe from frauds and scams during the coronavirus pandemic. Thank you so much, and have a great day.